that we need to address?
No, Your Honor.
Or on behalf of the state, Mr. Sachs?
No, sir. I'm just.
Let me know when you're ready, and
I'm
we'll.
just loading the photos now to save a little time
Okay.
later.
May I approach on an unrelated matter?
You may.
Truly bad nature, but since we're already set up with the smaller TV in front of the jury and the way we have it configured, instead of rearranging everything, we're just going to keep going as we have it set up. So when we get to other people with photos, I may do the same thing, even though those photos aren't as sensitive as the ones we saw earlier this morning, but we may just keep doing the same procedure.
Very well then. Welcome back. I see all members of the jury are present. I'll give you a moment to get settled in, make sure that the notebooks are in the right spot. You may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state will call Liqua Yang to the stand. Would sir please come on up? Come out through there. Okay. Swipe your step, Ryan. There you go. Thank you. Place your left hand on the Bible up to the stand. Raise your right hand, face the clerk on the other side of the judge, please.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Would you please have a seat?
You may proceed.
Thank you. Sir, I'm going to ask you to speak loudly and clearly into that microphone that's right in front of you, please. Would you please tell this jury who you are?
My name is Li Kun Yan. I am the owner of 708 Colonial Drive.
Were you the owner of 708 Colonial Drive back in January of 2013?
Yes.
When did you acquire that property?
2005.
Okay. And since that time, have you rented that property out to various tenants?
Yes.
Okay. The people that we've been talking about here, Jose Mendoza Flores and Maria Saravia Mendoza, do you know when they leased or moved into that residence at 708 Colonial Drive?
They moved in October 15th, 2011.
2011? Okay.
Right.
And who was actually renting that property before they moved in?
It's a young man called David. Gonzalez.
Okay.
Right.
Was he actually the person on the lease for you?
He was not.
Who was on the lease for that property at that time?
A person called Washington Hernandez. He actually he lived there before I bought the property, so I continued the lease with him.
So you basically inherited that renter
Right.
when you bought it?
Yes.
Now, you said this name of David Gonzalez. When did David Gonzalez move in there?
I think he was like around September or sometime, because sometimes Washington, there is a 2-bedroom apartment. Sometimes Washington just live one and get his friend or whatever things live in the other room. So I never asked the detail about that.
Okay. But were you specifically aware that this person named David Gonzalez was living there sometime during the year of 2011?
Right. He lived there because he wanted to take the lease. I didn't give him.
And you wouldn't give it to him?
No, I did not.
Okay. All right. And so did they move out, specifically that being Mr. Gonzalez and Mr. Hernandez, did they move out of that residence right before the other people moved in October of 2011?
That's right.
Do you have any idea how long Mr. Gonzalez would have been in your place with Mr. Hernandez?
Around 2 months, I'm guessing. Not exactly, right?
Around that time?
Right.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I don't have anything further, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
I don't have any questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. You may step down.
Can he be released from his subpoena, Your Honor?
Any objections, Mr. Cutler?
No.
He may.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just watch your step.
You may call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state will call Mike Galloway to the stand. Good afternoon, sir. Would you please introduce yourself to this jury, tell them who you are and what you do for a living?
My name is Michael Galloway. I am a crime scene investigator with City County Bureau of Identification for the past 18 years.
Is that what we also commonly know as CCBI?
Yes, sir.
Your 18 years with CCBI, is that your entire time within law enforcement?
No, sir, it's not.
How long have you been in law enforcement altogether?
I am going on my 25th year.
Okay, where were you before CCBI?
I started off as a military police officer at Fort Bragg, where I was an investigator. Then I was with Wilson Police Department, where I was a patrol officer and also a crime scene investigator.
Back in January of 2013, were you still employed as an agent with CCBI?
Yes, sir.
Did you have the occasion back in January of 2013 to become involved in this investigation of a homicide, of a double homicide that occurred at 708 Colonial Drive here within Wake County?
Yes, sir.
What was the reason or what was the purpose of you being called in to assist in this investigation?
One of my job duties, I am also a crime scene reconstruction, where I do shooting reconstruction and also blood stain pattern recognition.
Okay. And so what were you asked to do in this particular case?
Pretty much reconstruct this crime scene, find out where the trajectory of the bullets, the different paths and so forth.
And how do you do something like that?
It is, in this case, once we identify the bullet holes, we use a trajectory rod along with string, and it will show the path or the probable path of every projectile or each projectile as it passes through a particular item.
And does that become I guess even more stable if you have 2 points where a bullet can be passing through 2 points on the same path where you can show that trajectory?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'll let you describe some of the other variables when we get into it, but did you do that kind of work in this particular case?
Yes, sir, I did.
And so do you know when that was, when you did this kind of reconstruction?
I'm not sure of the date of the particular homicide, but I arrived there that Monday after the initial crime scene had been completed.
Okay. To your knowledge, when you arrived there to do the shooting reconstruction, was the property still under, I guess, law enforcement control?
Yes, sir, it was.
So in other words, had the crime scene been released back to anyone yet by that point?
No, sir.
Before we get started with that, can you tell us, when you just first arrived there that Monday to do this reconstruction, what did you observe about this scene?
A lot of bullet holes. A lot of mess. It almost looked like, especially as I conducted my investigation, almost like a police raid, where somebody went in there with some type of training, some type of experience, and methodically sought out different targets.
That front room that you came into, I'll come back to that later. So when you get there, what's the first thing that you do with respect to your reconstruction purpose?
I meet with the detective with the sheriff's office, and also with the other investigators with CCBI to get prior to this, I want no knowledge of the event. I don't want to jeopardize, I don't want my evidence to point toward what I find. So I just get general ideas about where certain items are or were located, such as shell casings, if anything had been moved, and just get a quick synopsis of what happened.
And by the time that you were there on that scene, had all the shell casings been removed from the scene?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So were you then just basically looking at the holes and trying to do the trajectory paths for each of those bullet holes?
Yes, sir, I was.
Okay. Were you able to do that?
Yes, sir.
And how were you able to do that again?
We identify the different bullet holes, and you got to examine the bullet holes to make sure that they're circular or oval in shape. And when a projectile is fired and it hits something solid, it's going to start tumbling. And so it's going to leave like a rectangle type of hole in whatever object it hits. I cannot do anything with those. So those are just documented and say, hey, I found a bullet hole like this. But if it's a circular bullet hole and there's 2 points at entry and exit, then I use a trajectory rod, and on the tip of that is a laser. I shine it to the wall that's corresponding to it and mark it with a Sharpie. And then I run a string from the rod to this point on the wall so we can illustrate the probability path of that projectile.
Is that what you did in this particular case?
Yes, sir.
After putting in those rods and marking those strings, did you take photographs of this reconstruction when you were completed with that task?
I did.
And have you had a chance to review those photographs before coming to court here today?
Yes, sir.
And the photographs that you have seen, have they been altered in any way from the time that when you first did that reconstruction back in January of 2013 to the time that they were placed on our photo disc, which is exhibit number 17?
No, sir.
Okay. And do those photographs fairly and accurately depict the scene after you completed your work putting in the trajectory rods and the strings to show probable trajectory paths?
Yes, sir.
And if I show you those photographs, would you be able to recognize them for us?
Yes, sir.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Agent Galloway, for the sake of time, we've already preloaded State's Exhibit number 17, which was introduced into evidence into the computer to try and get the photos loaded. And as you see here on the path on the disk, there's a folder named, and feel free to step down so that you can see this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Your Honor, may he be allowed to step down?
Yes, he may.
Okay. As you can see here, on this disk, there's a folder named Photos, and under that, a subfolder called Shooting Reconstruction. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
And then there are a bunch of thumbnail photos that are up here. Do you recognize these as the photos you took as a result of your work in that scene at 708 Colonial Drive back in January of 2013?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's open this one. What we're going to do, Agent Galloway, and what we have done and will continue to do is for each of these digital photographs is identify each one by the last 4 digits of its JPEG file number. Do you see that in the upper left-hand corner?
Yes, sir.
So this being photograph 6419, what are you just showing in this first photograph?
The first photograph, I want to identify the property where I'm actually at. I can't just start on the inside. I want to show the world where I started my processing.
Okay. All right. Let's go to photograph what's marked here, 6444 then. What is this photograph showing?
This is a photograph of the TV. As soon as you come in through the front door and make a right, there's a little entertainment with a TV. Now the yellow rod is one of my rods. It's going through the TV, out the TV, into the wall.
And can you show that on that picture here, what you're looking at?
This is the yellow rod starting here. It goes all the way through the TV at a 90-degree angle into the wall.
How about photograph 6447? What is that showing?
This is another photograph of the path that the projectile took.
The one from the TV?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So is that now the trajectory from the TV to the wall?
Yes, sir.
How about photograph 6450?
This is on the, as soon as you come, this is the path. Once again, here's the TV and the trajectory rod that is going through the TV.
How about photograph 6459?
This is a photograph of the couch with the bullet holes that penetrated or perforated the back cushions. I use a combination of the yellow and the purple. Mainly, I used the purple ones, but I ran out of rods because there were so many bullet holes.
Now, can you explain when you find holes in a soft substance like a couch cushion or something like that, how does that affect your reconstruction or what you're trying to show here?
When you have like a couch or a bed, you cannot do a complete reconstruction because you cannot substitute the weight of the person that's on. If you're sitting on it, it can be moved up and down. So the rods we're playing here for illustrative purposes, and it's also had the corresponding bullet holes behind the couch that the rods go into.
Okay. I think we'll show that in a later photograph. All right. How about photograph 6460?
This is another photograph of the couch, and it was just taking a different angle, give a different perspective of the angles and the probable path or position of the shooter as they were firing a weapon toward the couch.
Okay, now how about photograph 6484?
This is a photograph of the couch that is coming straight down, and it is showing the path of the projectiles as it perforated the couch and then hit the wall behind the couch.
So for those trajectories that ended up going into the wall, does that give you a truer sense that you had a hard substance or a hard structure to anchor that at one point?
Yes, sir, it does.
How about photograph 6486?
This is a photograph. Instead of coming straight down, I come off to the angle so you can get a side view of the projectiles as it perforated the couch and entered into the wall behind the couch.
How about photograph 6491?
Another photograph, this one again is straight down. is showing the different rods going through the couch into the wall.
All right, how about photograph 6493? What are you showing here?
This is after the rods are still in the couch, and there's one also into the door frame. But this is my string, and I use different color strings because your eyes can pick them out. If I use the same color string, then it's all going to run together. So this is the probable path of every projectile that entered through the couch or into the kitchen door frame.
Photograph 6496.
This is a different perspective or a different angle of the paths of the projectiles using the string. If you notice, some of the strings is going way up high, and some is more level out. That just shows the different path or the different height of the muzzle of the gun.
Does this specifically mean that the shot had to have been fired at the end of where your string is located?
No, sir. No, it just gives the potential path of the height of the muzzle as they were moving.
Okay. And what specifically, if someone was sitting on that couch, what would the higher angle going through? What would that indicate to you?
That they were closer to the person that they were shooting.
All right. How about photograph 6502?
This is a side angle of the strings attached to the rods, and this gives it's taking more of a 90-degree angle toward the rods, so you can get a perspective of the angle that the projectiles were fired.
All right. About photograph 6506.
This, I'm standing toward the kitchen on this one, taking the photograph toward the front door to get the string, so once again you can see the steep angles of the projectiles as they have been fired.
Photograph 6510.
Another photograph of the strings attached to the rods, giving you a perspective of the height of the muzzle once the firearm was fired.
All right. How about photograph 6517?
This is a combination of the projectiles fired into the couch as well as the projectile being fired toward the kitchen, such as this closest one here leading to the door frame.
What are we looking at in photograph 6522?
This is a photograph of the rod through the kitchen on that wall that separates the living room from the kitchen, where the projectile passed all the way through the wall, and it's, using the string, it's given the path of the projectile.
And just so we don't get confused with some other photographs I've seen, do you know what this black stuff on this door frame is?
That is fingerprint powder where it had been processed prior to my documentation.
Photograph 6523.
This is on the same wall, the wall separating the living room from the kitchen. The projectile passing on the kitchen side. You got the string that's passing all the way to the window frame.
And that went outside that window?
I believe it did.
All right, how about 6531?
This is a trajectory rod that's placed into the floor, and it's on the kitchen floor, where she was apparently was found at the time of the shooting.
Okay. Now, were you there when the victims were still present on the scene?
No, sir.
Okay, this is just what you were informed is where she was found?
Yes, sir.
How about photograph 6543?
This is, we are in the kitchen. You got a couple of trajectory rods that is going through the cabinet. Well, there's one that's going through the cabinet there, showing the path of a projectile.
All right, Is that better shown in photograph 6544?
Yes, sir. And this one, there's only one trajectory rod that's in the cabinet. You can see the other bullet holes.
That would be here where the arrows...
The 12, 13, and 14.
Okay. How about photograph 6547?
These are photographs of 2 bullet holes, number 12 and 13, in that kitchen, the bottom kitchen cabinet.
Were you the one who numbered these bullet holes for these photographs?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. How about photograph 6568?
This is in between where the living room ends to the kitchen. There's a little hallway, and that separates the 2 bedrooms, and this is a closet door.
Okay. What did you find on that closet door?
Several bullet holes that had perforated to the closet door.
All right. Looking at photograph 6570, what is that?
That is the closet door with the trajectory rods inside the holes. One thing, and just, these are not 2 separate bullet holes, they're just shadows from the flash.
And what about photograph 6588?
This is, I'm standing on top of, about the door, taking a photograph straight down, showing the angles of the trajectory rods.
Okay. And that's into that hallway closet door?
Yes, sir.
All right. And I think you had another string or rod placed here towards the bottom of that hallway as well.
Yes, sir. That is going into the other bedroom.
Okay, and that brings us back to the beginning, correct?
Yes, sir.
Agent Galloway, as a result of your time over there, did you ever count all the bullet holes that you were working with there at 708 Colonial Drive?
No, sir.
Okay. The bullet holes that you did work with, like we saw in the kitchen, did you number, as you went through all of these bullet holes, did you number them as part of your reconstruction work?
Yes, sir, I did. That way I can identify each one. When I wrote my report, I can identify every bullet hole, so the numbers were placed on that scale.
And as you did your reconstruction, did y'all have the occasion to move various pieces of furniture around to complete your task?
Yes, sir.
As y'all did that, did you find additional projectiles or other items of evidence to collect in this particular case?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did that also include some projectiles that may have gone into walls and things of that nature?
That's correct.
Since you did number your bullet holes, do you have a copy of your report on the stand there with you?
Yes, sir.
If you would just look and review your report, what's the highest number of bullet hole that you can find in your report that you noted?
20.
Thanks, I don't have anything further.
Mr. Cutler.
Just, so in those pictures, it appeared that some bullets were actually coming from as the string went down, the string actually went down to the floor.
Yes, sir.
And others were coming in at a more steep angle. So,
Yes, sir.
what do you, and you said it's based on the muzzle height, obviously, and the angle would be based. So how would you explain the low trajectory coming from the floor up into the sofa?
I would count that as a person just entering in and firing, and then as they get closer to a target, they are firing downward. Instead of when I'm coming in, I'm firing one way. As I get closer, I'm firing another way.
Was there much of a step up, if you remember, from the outside to the inside on that house?
Yes, 2 steps, 2 or 3 steps, I believe.
That's all the question I have, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Nothing further.
Thank you, sir. You can step down. And you may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think, yeah, you can tell them both. Yes, sir. Here we go. Yes, sir, Your Honor. Call for Rand to the stand.
Left hand on the Bible and raise your right. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thanks.
May I, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ma'am. Would you please introduce yourself to this jury, tell them who you are and what you do for a living?
My name is Carla Ferran. I'm an agent with the City County Bureau of Identification.
Is that also known as CCBI?
It is known as CCBI, and an agent would be a crime scene investigator.
How long have you been with CCBI?
Approximately 5 years.
Were you sole employed with CCBI and back in January of 2013?
Yes, sir.
Did you have the occasion back on January the 22nd of 2013 to assist the Wake County Sheriff's Office with the execution of a search warrant located at 165 Montesino Drive here in Wake County?
Yes, sir.
And what were you called out to do and to assist with the execution of that search warrant?
I was called out to photograph the results of the search.
Okay. Were you involved at all with the actual searching of that place?
No, sir. I actually arrived after they had executed the search warrant.
Okay. And were you involved at all in the collection of any items of evidence that they found during that search?
No, sir.
So was it just photographs were the only reason that you were called out there?
That's correct.
All right. And if I showed you those photographs that you took from that day, from that location, would you be able to recognize them?
Yes, sir.
And I think you've had a chance to see them actually before coming into court today, is that correct?
I have.
And those photographs that you saw, did they appear altered or changed or photoshopped or anything like that in any way?
No, sir. It did.
And did those photographs fairly and accurately depict the scene that you recall seeing out there at 165 Montesino Drive back on January the 22nd of 2013?
They do. Yes, sir.
Okay. Your Honor, may I show those?
Yes.
Again, Ms. Moran, just for the sake of time, we've already loaded in State Exhibit number 17, which is the photo just admitted into evidence. And I believe you said that you've been able to see those photographs from that disc, correct?
Yes, sir. I have.
All right. What I'm going to do after I get through. So on this photo disc, we have a subfolder that's called Second Montesino Drive Search. Do you see that on there? Feel free to step down.
Yes, sir. I can.
Okay. I'm going to open that up real quick. We're going to load these photos. I'm going to ask, Your Honor, may she be allowed to step down?
She may.
If you would, just step down here real quick. look into the thumbnail photos that are loading onto the monitor here and see if you recognize those as some of the photographs you took from that search warrant execution on that day.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's start with the first one then. What we've been doing, and we'll continue to do, is identify each photo by its JPEG file number.
Okay.
That's located at the upper left-hand corner. So with the photo here marked with the number 2284 as the last 4 digits, what is this a photo of?
That's the overall front view of 165 Montesino.
Okay. And how about photograph 2285? What are you showing there?
It's the photo of the mailbox to take a photo of the numerical house number just to coincide to show you.
How about photograph 2301?
That was one of the weapons that was found in the attic. When I arrived on scene, these are how I found the weapons. Deputies had already taken them out of the attic and placed them in the areas where you're going to see the photographs are.
Okay.
So,
And was this weapon in this condition with the magazine and this round out of the weapon just like this?
yes, sir, deputies had already cleared it and laid it right there along with the ammo in the box.
Okay. The ammo in the box being this box here?
Yes, sir.
Where this arrow is? How about photograph 2302?
That's a close-up of that same handgun that you just saw, the first photo, sitting beside the sink.
Okay. And you indicated that you did not collect this item, is that correct?
That's correct.
So did you record the model or the serial number or anything else of this weapon?
I have it as a High Point Firearms model JHP 45 ACP, and the serial number was scraped off.
Okay. How about photograph 2306? What is that showing?
That was also found along with the weapons, and it was a plastic bag just containing various items.
All right. And I think we'll have another photograph that
Okay.
lays those items out. Is that correct?
I believe so.
All right. How about photograph 2309?
This was also found by deputies, and I found it placed against the wall, just like this. It was a Stevens model shotgun, 67L Series E, 12 gauge, and there was a serial number that was visible on this shotgun.
Did they indicate to you that that item was found in the attic as well
Yes,
with the
sir.
other items?
Yes, sir.
All right. How about photograph 2312? What are we looking at here?
The bag earlier that you just referred to a couple of photos ago, this is the contents laid out on the bed. I had it as 2 brass knuckles and 3 devices for smoking marijuana, as well as 2 knives.
How about photograph 2316?
That's the same handgun we saw earlier that had the serial number scraped off. It's just lying on the bed now for a photo instead of next to the sink.
And how about photograph 2317?
It's a close-up, the same handgun again that has the serial number scraped off, and that's just the model number.
What are you showing in photograph 2318?
Within the handgun, there were different bullets. They were 45 caliber, but some of them had the head stamp scraped off, and this is showing one of those bullets that had that.
And where this one cartridge or live round, where did you retrieve that from?
They had already, it was one of them that had been removed from the handgun by deputies before I arrived.
How about photograph 2325? What are we seeing?
That's the actual attic where the weapons were removed from prior to my arrival.
So is this photograph part of the attic space at 165 Montesino Drive?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is.
How about photograph 2327?
That's the other side of the same attic at 165 Montesino.
All right. What are we seeing in photograph 2332?
It is the magazine removed from the handgun that we saw earlier.
And in photograph 2334?
This was one of the bullets that was found within that magazine, and it had also been removed by deputies, and that's just a photo of the head stamp that is not scratched off.
Okay. So is that what a cartridge or live round would normally look like?
Yes, sir.
I think that brings us back to the beginning, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. You showed Agent Ferran in some of the photographs how some of the cartridges from that .45 caliber handgun had been scratched and some weren't. Is that correct?
That's correct.
First of all, how many rounds did you find associated with that handgun?
Let me just check out my reports.
Okay.
So, one bullet was found loaded in the weapon, and that one had it scraped off of the head stamp. There were also 9 more .45 caliber bullets found in the magazine.
Okay.
5 of those bullets had the head stamp scratched off, and then the other ones were found to still have the head stamps intact.
Thank you, ma'am. I don't have anything further, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
No questions, Your Honor.
Do you remember if the 4 bullets in the magazine that did not have the, or appear to have the base of them scraped off, were they the last to be loaded in the magazine, or were they the first? Do you remember?
I don't recall, no, sir.
Okay. Any follow-up question based on what I've asked Mr. Sachs?
No, sir. Thank you.
Or Mr. Cutler?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. You can step down. You may call your next witness.
Your Honor, state will call Stacy Snyder to the stand.
Ma'am, if you would, please place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Sachs.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ma'am. Would you please tell this jury who you are and what you do for a living?
My name is Stacy Snyder. I'm a crime scene agent with Wake County's City County Bureau of Identification.
Can you slide forward and maybe
Yes.
Lift that microphone up? There you go.
Bet.
Okay.
And how long have you been with CCBI?
Since June of 2010.
Okay. Is it on?
It's on.
Okay. All right. I'm going to ask you to make sure to keep your voice up.
Will
so
do.
I can hear you. Were you so employed with CCBI back in January of 2013?
I was.
Did you have the occasion to become involved in the investigation of the Donald homicide that occurred at 708 Colonial Drive located here within Wake County?
I did.
And what were you specifically asked to do with respect to this particular investigation?
I responded to the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, where they perform the autopsies, to collect evidence from the autopsies of the victims.
Okay. And what kind of evidence do you normally go down to collect when you go to the medical examiner's office?
We collect any clothing that may have been on the victims when they were transported to the medical examiner's office. We collect any items that may have been involved, such as if there are projectiles or possibly ropes or anything like that that were transported with the body when our transport people take them from the scene to the medical examiner's office. We also collect stuff such as pulled head hair, blood spot cards, fingernail scrapings if needed for the investigation.
And when was that you responded to the medical examiner's office with respect to this particular case? Do you recall that date?
I went there on Monday, January 7th of 2013.
And when you went there on that Monday, January the 7th, what did you collect?
I met with the medical examiner, Dr. C. Nicholson, and basically what they do is they collect the items I talked about from the autopsy. They seal them up in their own evidence bags, and then they hand them over to us, and we sign for them, and then take them back to our office. On this day, I collected an envelope with a blood spot card from Jose Flores Mendoza. I collected a sealed plastic bag with 1 copper and color projectile that had come from Jose Flores Mendoza. I collected a second sealed plastic bag containing 1 copper in color projectile from Jose Flores Mendoza. I collected 1 sealed envelope containing pulled head hair from Jose Flores Mendoza. And then I collected what we call major case prints from each of the victims, both Jose Flores Mendoza and Maria Saravia. Basically what that entails is we take inked impressions of the victims' fingerprints to make sure that we identify that they are who we believe they are, as well as clearing any cases that they may have been involved in investigations.
And specifically with respect to those projectiles that you talked about recovering from the medical examiner's office, what did you do with those 2 projectiles?
We get them usually in the medical examiner's packaging. Sometimes they're in plastic containers. In this case, they were in plastic bags. Because of the way we do our evidence, I take those smaller plastic bags and I place them, without opening them, inside one of our evidence envelopes so that we can fill it out with the information we need and then turn it over to our evidence technician, who then gets it to the investigating agency.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Ma'am, let me show you what's been previously marked for identification as State Exhibits 23 and 24.
Okay.
You see those red stickers with those numbers on them?
I do.
You would just look at those for a moment and see if you can tell us what those are.
These are our evidence envelopes, which I filled out all the pertinent information for the case, our case number, the date, the victim information, and what is contained in each of these envelopes.
Are those envelopes in a sealed condition as you look at them right now?
They are.
And what are those envelopes supposed to contain?
State's Exhibit number 23, I have evidence description as 1 sealed plastic bag containing 1 copper and color projectile.
And how about State Exhibit number 24?
State's Exhibit number 24, evidence description is 1 sealed plastic bag containing 1 copper and color projectile.
And are these supposed to be, at least by your markings and your documentation there, the 2 projectiles that were recovered from the body of Jose Mendoza Flores?
They are.
I may approach Your Honor. You would open up please State Exhibit number 23.
Okay. Can I put on gloves?
And there are some right there.
I've got some right here that actually fit me. And you said go ahead and open both of them?
Yeah, well, let's start with number 23.
Okay. Clear plastic bag with 1 copper and color projectile.
Does that appear to be the same item that you packaged up back on January the 7th of 2013 with respect to this particular case?
It does.
And the projectile that you have there, marked State Exhibit number 23, does it appear to be in the same condition as when you collected it from the medical examiner's office back on that date of January the 7th, 2013?
Yeah, it looks the same to me, yes.
Okay. Let's do the same now with State Exhibit number 24.
Okay.
What do you find inside?
There is a sealed clear plastic bag containing 1 copper and color projectile.
And again, does that appear to be the same projectile that you recovered from the medical examiner's office from the body of Jose Flores back on January the 7th of 2013.
It does.
Does it appear to be in the same condition as when you collected from that place at that time?
It does.
I move then to introduce Exhibits 23 and 24 into evidence.
Any objections?
No, Your Honor.
They're both admitted.
And if you would, could you just, without getting them mixed up, maybe we'll do them one at a time. Let's start with State Exhibit 23. Can you show the jury State Exhibit number 23?
Yes. Do you just want me to hold it up?
You can. Actually, may she be allowed to step down, Your Honor?
She can step down in front of the box.
Right, that's what I'm talking about. And show them what they're looking at here.
Okay. This is State's Exhibit 23. It's in a clear plastic bag. It's sealed with tape and evidence tape. And you can see the projectile, copper in color, right there in the corner.
And walk down to the side so
Go
that
ahead.
everybody can see. Okay, we don't want to get those mixed up, so make sure that goes back with the number 23 envelope.
I will do that.
And let's do the same thing for State Exhibit number 24.
24. Okay. Once again, it's in a sealed plastic bag, sealed with tape and evidence tape. And in the lower corner here, you're going to have the copper and color projectile inside the bag.
Thank you, ma'am. I think that's all I have.
Mr. Cutler.
Agent Snyder, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
There are probably several reasons you would get clothes from the victim, correct?
At the medical examiner's office?
Yeah.
Yes.
You could run different tests on them, or at least see where the holes were, and all different reasons you would get clothes from a victim, correct?
Correct.
One of those things you could do, depending on the type of case, and is gunshot residue, is that something that is typically done on clothing?
You could possibly do it depending on the distance that the firearm was from the clothing when it was fired.
And do you know what tests were done on the items you picked up?
I honestly do not. Basically, the way we work, just to let you guys know, is since I was doing the follow-up investigation, I turn all the items I collect over to the lead agent, and then they go ahead and work with the detective to get what would need to be tested with what, since they actually are more privy to the information as far as what's going on with the investigation.
And who was the lead agent?
Shane Smithy.
Thank you. That's all the questions.
Nothing further.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down.
Okay. What would you like me to do with these bullets?
I'll take care of it.
Would you like me to place them back in the envelopes?
Please. Thank you very much.
You may call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state will call Chris Hill to the stand.
So if you would, please place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
And you may proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir. Would you please tell this jury who you are and what you do for a living?
My name is Christopher Hill. I'm an investigative supervisor with CCBI.
And how long have you been with CCBI?
I've been with CCBI for 9 years, but I've been in law enforcement for right at 20.
What were you doing before CCBI?
I've worked for a couple of small departments in eastern North Carolina. My last position, I was lieutenant investigator for the agency.
Back in December of 2012 and January of 2013, were you still employed with CCBI at that time?
Yes, sir, I was.
First of all, did you have the occasion to become involved in the work or the investigation of a double homicide that occurred at 708 Colonial Drive, located here within Wake County?
Yes, sir, I was.
How or why were you called into that particular case?
That call initially came in early in the mornings, and I was the actually night shift supervisor working at night. Due to the complexity of the case, it being a homicide, the amount of time it would take to process the scene, and how close we were to shift change, I decided it would be better off to hold it for day shift. When Agent Smithy showed up, because she was going to be the primary agent, her supervisor was still en route because we called him in early. And so I stayed with her for probably an hour or two until her supervisor arrived.
Okay. Do you know who that other supervisor was?
That was Tammy Malinowski.
So did you have the occasion on that night or the early morning hours actually of January the 5th, 2013 to go out to that scene at 708 Colonial Drive?
Yes, sir, I did.
And just as we've done with all the witnesses who were there, can you just briefly describe what you saw when you arrived at that scene?
Briefly, when I arrived, there was numerous Wake County Sheriff deputy cars there. We located the residence that the homicide occurred at. When Agent Smithy and I did our initial walkthrough, we noticed that there were people laying inside the residence, numerous shell casings laying across the residence into the kitchen, living room, and holes in almost every surface.
Specifically talking about some of those casings that were found that when you were helping the process or walking through that scene, did you notice anything distinctive about any of those shell casings?
I did. The first thing I noticed that the handgun caliber was a .45. In my experience with CCBI, I've only had maybe a handful, 2 handfuls of cases where .45s were involved. With that, due to the proximity of the crime scene to a previous crime scene that I worked, and the caliber of the shell casing, I felt like they might have been possibly related.
Did you yourself see or look at any of the shell casings that were found there at that scene at Colonial Drive?
I did. One of the unique things about the previous crime scene was that the head stamp, which is the flat part that of the shell casing, the head stamp was grinded off or etched off to a point where you couldn't actually read what the head stamp was.
Okay. Did you see that same kind of shell casing at the scene at 708 Colonial Drive?
I did.
All right. When you saw that, what did you do?
When I saw that, I immediately went outside and notified the sheriff's office and told them that of my findings and that I believed that it was related to the shooting that I responded to about a month earlier.
Let's talk about that then. When was that particular case?
And that was on December 4th, 2012.
And where was this scene?
Well, I was initially called to 868 Green Pine Drive in Raleigh, which is not far from where the homicide actually occurred. When I arrived there, I made contact with investigators, and they basically told me that the incident occurred at the intersection of Woodcrest Drive and Meadowbrook Road.
Did you respond to that location then?
I took photos of the car that the victim was in when he left the original crime scene to come to the location where he called 911. And then after that point, I responded to the intersection.
Okay. Before we leave that, and maybe before we forget, when you looked at that vehicle back on Green Pine Drive, did you notice anything in the back seat that was located back there?
We'll have to look right quick. actually noted in my report, but if I see the photographs, I might be able to.
What I was specifically wondering is if you recall seeing some laundry, a laundry basket with laundry in that back seat.
Yes, sir.
Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So after responding there to Green Pine, did you go over to the intersection where it was relayed to you that the incident actually occurred?
Yes, sir, I did.
And remind us again of those streets that make that intersection?
That was Meadowbrook Road and Woodcrest Drive.
And just to give the jury some idea, how far away is that from where you are on Green Pine?
I would say probably quarter mile max.
Okay. What did you see when you got to the intersection of Woodcrest and Meadowbrook?
When I first arrived there, the crime scene was taped off with crime scene tape, and Wake County deputies were providing scene security. In the middle of the tape, I found numerous shell casings in the intersection, and then one also on the shoulder of the west side of the Meadowbrook Road.
Okay. And what kind of shell casings were those that you found?
There were 45 caliber shell casings.
Okay. And did you notice anything distinctive about those shell casings?
Those shell casings also had the head stamp either scraped off, etched off, grinded off, something. It was completely damaged.
Could you explain to this jury how, if the head stamp had been etched or scratched off, how you knew that they were 45 caliber casings?
Through my experience, I'm a firearms instructor. I'm also a shooting reconstructionist. I've been in law enforcement for 20 years, so I'm familiar with a 45 shell casing.
Okay. Did you collect those casings?
I did.
Okay. I may approach, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
78 to 82. Sir, let me hand you here what's been marked for identification as State Exhibits 78 through 82. Do you see those red stickers with those numbers on them?
I do.
Okay. Ask you to examine those and see if you can tell us what those are.
These appear to be the shell casings that I collected that night.
And how do you know that?
On the front, I have my information from my case, including the case number, the date I collected it, what it's supposed to be, the CCBI item number, and the agency case number. And on the back, I sealed it and initialed and date the seal.
Are all of those in an envelope that you cannot see through?
That's correct.
All right. And are each of those envelopes marked State Exhibits 78 through 82, I believe?
78 through 82, yes, sir.
Are they all in a sealed condition right now?
They are.
Do they all have the identifying information that you noted before on the front of the envelope?
They do.
Let's start with State Exhibit number 78. I'm going to ask you to open that one, please. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I knew that wrong. May I approach you?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
What do you find inside?
A shell casing.
Okay, if you take it out, please. Okay. Does that appear to be one of the actual shell casings you recovered from the scene at Woodcrest and Meadowbrook back on December the 4th of 2012?
Yes, sir, it does.
Does it appear to be in the same condition as when you saw and collected it back in December of 2012?
Yes, sir, there's a couple little marks on it.
Do you know where those marks may have come from?
Most likely the crime lab.
Okay, that's what's going to be my next question. Are you aware of any other agency or place where all of these casings were sent to for further testing or analysis?
On this case, I sent all these to the North Carolina State Crime Lab.
Okay, so besides those marks that are on the on that casing, does the casing otherwise appear to be in the same condition?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay. Let's look at the last one. Let's look at State Exhibit number 82. If you would open that one up, please.
Okay.
And what do you find inside?
Shell casing.
Can you take it out, please? Again, does this appear to be one of those shell casings that you recovered from the scene at Woodcrest and Meadowbrook back on December the 4th of 2012?
Yes, sir, it does.
And does it also have the markings on it that you believe could be from the crime lab?
Yes, sir.
Besides those marks, is it in the same condition as when you saw and collected it back on December the 4th of 2012 from that intersection?
Yes, sir, it does.
As you examine the other, well, actually, let's go ahead and open the other ones as well. So let's go to Exhibit 79.
Okay.
Okay, what do you find inside?
Shell casing.
Is it the same as the others that we've already done?
Yes, sir.
And does it also have the markings on it that you believe could be from the crime lab?
Yes, sir.
Other than that, does it appear to be in the same condition as when you collected it from that scene back in December of 2012?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay. Let's do the same thing with number 80.
Okay.
What do you find inside?
Shell casing.
And again, are the markings on it potentially from the crime lab that you noted on the others?
Yes, sir.
Besides those markings, does it appear to be the same condition as when you found and collected this item from that scene back in December of 2012?
Yes, sir, it does.
And finally, number 81, same thing.
Okay.
Okay. What do you find inside?
Shell casing.
Okay. And again, does this appear to be one of the casings that you collected from that scene at Woodcrest and Meadowbrook back in December of 2012?
Yes, sir.
And does it have the markings that you believe may have been placed there by the crime lab?
Yes, sir, it does.
And besides those markings, is it in the same general condition as when you collected it from that scene at that day, on that date?
Yes, sir, it is.
Your Honor, I move to introduce then Exhibit 78 to 82 in evidence.
Any objections?
No, Your Honor.
They're all admitted.
Besides these casings, were there any other evidence that you collected from this scene?
Yes, sir. I also collected 2 pieces of clear plastic. One black and mild cream cigar unwrapped.
Okay.
Let's see. And then Deputy Willis turned over a brown Survivor work boot, size 8, and a projectile that he found prior to my arrival.
From that boot?
Sir?
From that boot?
I don't know if it was actually from the boot or if it was actually just from the scene.
Okay.
But it's these items that he found before I arrived.
Okay. Let me approach, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
83. So, again, I'll take these from you so we don't get them mixed up. And I'll hand you what's marked now for identification as exhibit number 83. Do you see that red sticker with the 83 on it?
Yes, sir, I do.
Ask you to look at that. See if you can tell us what that is.
This is the projectile that Deputy Willis turned over to me.
And is that in a sealed envelope as you're looking at it right now?
Yes, sir, it is.
Does it have your identifying case information on the front to help explain what that is supposed to be?
Yes, sir, it does.
All right. And does it have the case name and the case number and the other information that you talked about with the other items?
Yes, sir, it does.
If you would then, please open up State Exhibit 83 and see what we find inside.
Okay.
Okay, what do you find inside?
It is a large caliber projectile.
Is that loose or is it in another bag inside of that envelope?
This is loose.
Okay. As you look at that projectile, does that appear to be the same projectile that you recovered from that scene back on December the 4th of 2012 at this intersection?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay. And were you the one who packaged these items up to send on for further testing?
Yes, sir, I was.
And does it appear to be in the same general condition as when you recovered it or was it was given to you back on December the 4th of 2012 from that scene?
I believe there's an extra mark on it, possibly from the crime lab.
Again, do you recognize what those marks, you know,
Yes,
suspect you know where those marks are coming from?
yes, sir.
Okay. Is that the same as what we had seen kind of on the casings as well?
Yes, sir, I think so.
All right. Besides that mark then, does it appear to be the same?
Yes, sir, it appears to be the same.
Yeah, I move then to introduce State Exhibit 83 into evidence.
Any objections?
No, Your Honor.
I'll receive 83.
When you were on the scene there in that intersection, was the ambulance still there at that scene? Do you recall?
I don't remember right off the top of my head.
Okay. But did you go to Green Pine first and then the scene, or the scene first and then Green Pine?
Green Pine first and then to the scene.
Okay. Thanks. So I don't have anything else, Your Honor.
Cross-examination, Mr. Cutler.
May we approach briefly?
You may. You until 3:45. Please keep in mind the rules. Don't talk about this matter among yourselves or allow anybody to talk about it in your presence and don't form any opinion. Please leave your notebooks and return to the jury room in 15 minutes. I doubt you'll want to stray outside because it looks like you're pouring down rain. So we'll see you back here shortly.